actually catching the flu, among other things as well. Let's see, Mark Mitchell tonight. Are we headed toward a breakup? Is our country headed toward a breakup? You know, some say civil war. Others say, oh, we might just break up. We just, you know, we're going to go our own way. Maybe Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, a few states say we're going to become a union of our own or whatever. I don't know. But now we see surveys and polls showing that about a majority of people on the left think using violence and murder is acceptable. You can't stay a nation, a United States like that very long. We'll talk about that. And then who might come along? Who might come along? Hey, who might come along with 2028 elections and run as president? What kind of polling data is out there? We'll get into that with Mark Mitchell. David Pyne is going to join us because there may be a connection between the two attempted assassination attempts on Donald Trump and Ukraine. There may be a connection between the assassination attempts on the life of Donald Trump and Ukraine. We'll talk about that tonight as well. And then maybe there are some Chinese fighters, some CCP people potentially, fighting with Russia. We'll see about that. And then we're going to be joined by, Nick Helsher, Mark Mitchell, David Pyne, Todd Benman. Todd, we're going to ask Todd about the truckers. We'll ask Todd about the truckers, the illegal truckers, and what he thinks of that story. And then we're going to talk about what is Donald Trump doing? What's he accomplished in a matter of just a few months? How are we doing? And how about the war on fentanyl, the war on drugs? The war on the Mexican drug cartels. How about all that? We'll get to that with Todd Benman tonight. Now, before we do, remember, we're going to go first to Mark Mitchell. And before we do, remember now, we're brought to you by you. We've got to have your support. Please consider going to worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Worldviewtube.com/sponsors. Will you do that? Check out all these great products. You know them. I use them every day. My Bella Grace. Where's my Bella Grace? There it is. I use the elixir. I take it every day. Melissa loves the skincare. She loves the skincare. There's the elixir at the top. 80 clinical trials. She loves the skincare. She uses the Bella Trim. Logan's on the Bella Trim. It's all natural, plant-based. Helps you lose weight, curbs your appetite, and the studies show it's great for your cardiac health as well. Also, apparently, it's great for your glucose levels and good cholesterol, all kinds of things. Check it out. And then Melissa loves the restorative sleep, helps her to stay awake. That lady slept till 7:30 this morning. I actually set my alarm, and I'm the one that woke her up today. So there you go. That's late sleeping for her. So it works. Restorative sleep, again, all natural. Check it out. MelissaHouseBG.com. You know, I take the Gatatana every day. I take a full scoop in my water. 1 scoop's equivalent of 90 billion plant cells, protein, amino acids, trace minerals, beta carotene, all kinds of great stuff. 5 clinical trials behind this. And Dolly, she gets a half a scoop on her food every day. There's that cat that had a tumor in its eye, got it on the Gatatana, tumor gone. Remember the guy that helped get this going had a terminal diagnosis. So he's like, I'm raising plankton for shellfish. I'll try this. He starts eating it. His daughter's like, you're crazy. What are you doing? Turns out he went in for surgery, some biopsies. They all 11 of them came back benign. They're like, what are you doing? And thus was born not just growing the phytoplankton for shellfish, but for human consumption. David Hunter helped bring us the Global Plankton Alliance. And you know what, folks? Our memberships for this have spiked since we've been telling the story of that gentleman who went on to live another 10 years. Am I making a claim? No, I'm just telling you what his story is. It was printed up in the papers in Canada. It's on YouTube, his testimony. He went to live another 10 years, retired to Hawaii. Yeah. This is very important, along with my Bella Grace. I take that every day. And then I swish with my Numi, which contains glutathione to detox my cells, because there's a lot of toxins, including people shedding on you that have had the shot, among other things, toxins in the water, unless you got one of our water purifiers, in the air, And then this shows it may actually remove mercury from your brain to help prevent things like Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Okay? So check all that out. This is very important to help us do what we do in pushing out this free content each and every night. Of course, don't forget about our foundation. Don't forget about our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. Okay, worldviewfoundation.com. Joining me now is Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen. He'll be one of our keynote speakers at our fall conference coming October 3rd and 4th. And the full details are at worldviewstore.com. He joins me tonight to talk about a very disturbing study, and that has to do with we are headed apparently toward an assassination culture. That's one of the new studies I talked about earlier this week. Nope, not that, guys. I'll show. I'm trying to find it real quick. But an assassination culture. Here it is. Here it is, guys. I found it. And I want to ask him about this. And I want to ask him what he thinks about this fitting into what he's talked about, which is maybe not a civil war, but a civil breakup. The country breaking up into parts. Clearly, we can't all agree and get along. We used to have fundamental things we agreed upon as Americans, regardless of political party, right? People can't even agree now that patriotism is a good thing, that parental authority and parental rights is sacred. Colorado, they just passed a bill. They're gonna try to take away children from parents that don't affirm their transgenderism. I mean, we used to have basics, sacred basics. We don't have those anymore. I frankly don't know how we survive as a republic. Frankly, I think we are headed to a breakup. I think it's probably necessary. I hate to say it, but I don't see another way out of it. And I certainly don't want to see a civil war. But now we have a big chunk of the left, a majority of the left thinks that violence is okay. They now call terrorists, of course, freedom fighters. Joining me now is Mark Mitchell. Mark, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, really great to be here. I'm all primed up on this topic because I just did Tim Pool last week, and the Civil War is his pet issue. So
is it really? I did not know that.
We got into a little bit.
I did not know that.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah,
so do you think we're headed to a civil war or just a civil breakup?
Americans think that it's increasingly likely that we're headed to a civil war. The last time we asked it was 43% of U.S. likely voters that said at least somewhat likely. That number's up from, I think, the 31% before. I think we might have asked that back in the Trump administration. So basically, it was an effect of the Biden administration that in the teens, increase in people think we're headed towards a civil war. Now, believe it or not, we actually came at it the direction you did, which is, well, what about a national divorce? Because Marjorie Taylor Greene brought that up as a topic back in the spring of 23. And we asked that, and believe it or not, the number's lower. And so there's this idea that, well, people feel that violence is coming. They don't necessarily want it to. 34% approved of national divorce. And because it was the Biden administration, it was conservatives way more than moderates or liberals. A majority of conservatives, 49%. So half of conservatives thought that a national divorce would be a good idea, but it was only 24% of moderates, 17% of liberals. But there's all these other measures that are just off the chart where we're in a context of political violence and fear.
Well, let's go to this poll. I'm sure you're familiar with the Network Contagion Research Institute. And of course, they're talking about an assassination culture. What did you learn from reading their information? I guess murder justification, I guess it's right there. Murder justification, 31%, and 38% of respondents stated would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively. 38%. These effects were largely driven by respondents that identified as left of center, with 48% and 55% at least somewhat justifying murder for Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively, indicating significantly higher justification for violence against these figures. Then property damage, nearly 40% of respondents stated it's at least somewhat acceptable to destroy a Tesla dealership in protest. This is why we have a free event coming up in Milwaukee at the Waukesha Expo Center. We have over 1,000 people registered. It's our first time to do one of these rallies in 7 years because of the physical violence that was threatened against our conferences. One man doing 7 months in federal prison for terroristic threats against us in person, brandishing weapons. Then Antifa, that was April 2017. April 2018, Antifa and Black Lives Matters and Muslim Brotherhood types and Southern Poverty Law Center types, they were all out on social media calling for people to call our hotel venues and get us shut down. And some of them were making such threats, the venues felt unsafe and pulled our contracts. That's why when we have events, we have to spend a few $1,000s just in security, because these people are becoming more and more
unhinged.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. That's where we're at. And it's all this gaslighting. And there's just been so many psychological operations thrown at people in general, and especially the left. We covered on your show the vast divergence between what people who watch MSNBC think and people who watch Fox News. It's like two totally different worlds, two totally different issue sets. The MSNBC people were whipped up into a froth this fall over threats to democracy. And what's kind of crazy is that it almost always goes one way, right? You know, the squattings, the attacks, the burning, some of it's paid, but some of it's literally crazy people that don't have a filter. And it's because they've been taught so long that Donald Trump's Hitler, that countries' democracies being undermined, that they're going to be put into camps, like all this kind of stuff, when in reality, the people who were at most threat of being put into camps in the last 4 years objectively were people who didn't want to take an experimental vaccine. But what's wild is that we asked about this election and whether there would be violence about it after it. And I think the number was 2/3. We asked if how likely is it that there will be a violent reaction if Kamala Harris is elected president. And Democrats, I believe the number was about 2/3, said it was likely. But for the same question with Republicans, if Donald Trump was elected, it was a much lower number, like almost 20 points lower. So the idea is that Democrats think that there is this violent MAGA extremist, and it's all because of January 6th. It's all because of those fake optics. And it's just wild that you have this situation where people look back at the Capitol riot. A lot of them are still, really pained about it. It was a very effective gaslighting operation. And yet at the same time, we have over 60% of Americans who say that it's likely that federal agents provoked the Capitol riot. So it's this mess. And ultimately what it comes down to is people are on different sides of these issues. There's a lot of fog of war. The left thinks that the right is violent. The right is in power right now and controls ostensibly the military and the police. And so you have this group of disaffected people who really just want to be in power. They really want this like cognitive dissonance to end. Because I think they're being jerked on a chain right now. I try to go to Reddit once or twice a week just to look at the mental health. And it's just absolutely crazy how they are glomming on to these psychological operations. This whole Black Monday thing is another really great example. So Jim Cramer, nobody should be listening to him. The guy's like just perennially wrong about everything. But he had an interview on Wednesday on CNBC where he said, next Monday could be like Black Monday, and we're going to see a 26% drop in the stock market or whatever it was, right? And what happened is I went on Reddit subreddit politics over the weekend, and it's like, wow, everybody's talking about this impending Black Monday. And I went to Google Trends and I looked at the search volume for Black Monday. And what's wild is it did not spike at all until Sunday. And so what happened is everybody saved this story up. They all decided that they're going to do a coordinated attack on the American psyche, and they launched it into the Sunday news cycle. They dropped every media outlet dropped a story about Black Monday on Sunday, and you can watch in real time on the Google Trends on like the 1-day data. You can go back and look at Monday, where there's all of this organic search volume for the terms Black Monday. And then literally the New York Stock Exchange bell opens and the search volume falls off. And so they moved on to something else now.
And by the way, I think I have Kramer's clip on this. I've not seen it. I just pulled it up while you were talking. I think this is it. Let's see, guys.
If the president doesn't try to reach out and reward these countries and companies that play by the rules, then the 1987 scenario, the one where we went down 3 days and then down 22% on Monday, has the most cogency. We will not have to wait out too long, will we? We'll know by Monday. Fortunately, we had an excellent set of employment numbers today. At least it makes it less likely a crash will necessarily lead to a recession. But if President Trump stays intransigent and does nothing to ameliorate the damage that I saw these last 2 days, I'm not going to be constructive here. I will contain my anger, but only because I lived through 87, and in the end, I came out okay. I was in cash for the crash. I know what this feels like. Oh, and if Europe moves against our fabulous tech companies next week, then I will be furious. That I promise you, because it should not happen.
Okay, I don't know if that's the clip you're referring to or not, but there he is.
Well, it seems like that it might be part of that segment. But the thing is, again, it's like just part of this guy's show, right? He's like evaluating what might happen. And somebody filed it away and said, oh, we're going to use this weekend and everybody's going to run with it. It's like, why did that happen? And I keep coming back to, well, I think maybe people are still coordinating our mainstream media political talking points, because 64% of Americans think that U.S. intel agencies are doing it. But back to that report, I didn't get to read it all, but the numbers exactly fit in with all the other things, right? Where over half of voters thought there would be a violent reaction to this election, no matter who won. And then we've run all those same questions. 20% of Americans think that, yeah, burning down Tesla dealerships is a valid form of protest. We asked about Luigi Mangione and whether it was understandable that he murdered a health executive, a health company, insurance CEO. And 27% said, oh, yeah, it's an understandable reaction to the high cost of healthcare in America. 38% 18 to 39-year-olds, 34% of Democrats. And RMG had a good one this summer, and they found that 28% of Democrats thought it would have been better if the assassin hadn't missed in Butler. And so is it everybody? No, like everybody has fears of violence, but quite frankly, they're more concerned about even the government. We had 72% a year ago thinking that being at least somewhat concerned that we're living in a police state. And that fits exactly with only 30% of people trusting the federal government. So it's this aspect of like this perfect storm of Biden overreach, economic destruction, censorship, and then the way that the violent mobs like almost seem to work hand in glove with the media and the government that people are afraid of. Now, what does that mean? Like, we talked it over of potential likely paths forward. And I disagreed with Tim Pool on his take. He thinks that there's very low likelihood that like local police officers and, would side with the federal government if it ever came down to some kind of constitutional crisis. Now, we've had plenty of constitutional crises, but I disagree with that one.
I disagree. The police will do whatever they're told because they need their paycheck and their pension. They will do whatever they're told. We saw them do it with COVID.
But the question is, who's telling them to do what?
Well, they arrested people during COVID. We have the videos of them arresting people, singing hymns in a church parking lot in Moscow, Idaho, of all places, right? We have video of a cop tasing a woman outside, sitting away from everybody else, outside at her kid's football game because she wasn't wearing a mask. We have video of two cops arresting a store owner who was selling hay and paper towels and other things that the big box stores could sell, but he couldn't. And when he showed, hey, I got a license to sell this, they didn't like it. And the scum wearing the uniforms, and I'm for the police when they abide by their oath, but when they don't, they're scum, and they arrested him. So I don't trust the police by and large. They will do whatever they're told to do. That's human nature to protect their pension and paycheck.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and it fits with every other institution being co-opted and just doing what the authoritarians tell them to do.
Exactly.
But it's specifically where I think it's the context of what event, specifically now in this, where we're at, would spark some kind of thing that we would all say, oh, like this has changed everything. And the scenario I keep coming up with is one where a state government is at odds with a federal government, okay? And the example I used is, okay, we have Phil Murphy harboring an illegal alien. What happens if the federal government deems that that's, he needs to be indicted or taken into custody for federal law enforcement. The situation you have there is like, okay, where's the friction? Mm-hmm. Is the FBI going to come? Is Murphy not going to turn himself over? Do FBI agents encounter state troopers? And is that a situation where the state troopers, they're not putting their boot on the neck of moms and pops? It's a very different situation.
Yeah, that is a different situation.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the police in Dallas and the Secret Service fighting over the casket of JFK.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where you get people,
Yeah, no.
Where you get
exactly
where you get state and local police and the coroner saying you're not taking his body, and you got the feds saying you are, and these guys now are in a power struggle. So in other words, what you're really talking about isn't, like you said, the police coming against mom and pop, because they'll likely just go against the people. If the police are told to do that, they'll do it. We've seen them do it history time and time and time again. But if you have now two different agencies coming against each other, one a state, one a federal, yeah, that's pretty unknown how that could roll.
Yeah, and it depends on a lot of unpredictable things. Now, I think probably another likely one is like a state legislature goes through the motion of seceding. Mm-hmm. And I see there, it's like, well, yeah, the cops their paychecks coming from the new United States of America, whoever is involved in that, right? But then you have, okay, well, that state has National Guard, and what happens to those folks? It gets pretty complicated pretty fast. And I guess there's also the whole situation where people in government are awfully mad at Donald Trump right now. And I think it's because probably if you charted billionaire unhappiness over the last 8 years, it's probably at the peak right now. It's probably at the very peak. People are ripping their hair out in Amazon and Walmart and everything that depends on a global supply chain, right? That's my guess. I'm guessing that phones were melting down all over Capitol Hill because every one of those Republican senators takes in massive amounts of money from big corporations, global corporations, right? And already, 7 Republican senators jumped ship on this. And it's like, well, if the American people think that Trump is being undermined by people in Washington, D.C. that don't have the best interest, like that's another situation, and one where Trump might appeal to the people because he's done that in the past. And so then it's like, okay, well, what does the military do? I think becomes the big question, right? Or what do the Capitol Police do, or whatever, puts us back into a January 6th kind of situation. Like, we had good conversations talking through. Ultimately, what it comes down to is you have no idea. Like literally anything can happen now. But I think we're in a period of rapid change, and society's changing too.
That's the key point. The society is changing because we no longer have a society that, as I started out this interview with, based on common ethics, right? Common morals. There's been a collapse of morals, and now we have moral relativism. Well, yeah, if you're not getting your way politically, then killing somebody is acceptable. If you're not getting what you want or don't like something, you can burn their building down. You can destroy property. We've reached a point where, well, the founding fathers said this. They said that if you remove a firm belief in the hearts of the people that there is a God, there is a judgment day, there's consequences, and we should all be regulating our behavior through a moral law because there is a moral lawgiver who will judge us in this life or the next. If you remove that, you're going to collapse. The nation cannot operate. And now we have a bill in Colorado. Colorado Democrats passed a bill to codify abortion until birth. Of course, this is, again, happening around the country. We had the governor of Virginia a few years ago saying we'll make the child comfortable after it's born and then decide what to do it. Infanticide, right? Legal in many, many states, infanticide. And then you have Colorado, by the way, also working on a bill that will prosecute parents. If the parents don't agree, I'm going to see if I can find it here, guys, but I had it up here at one point. If they don't agree with the child's gender affirming, if they don't do this, here we go. No, that's that one. Then the parents could be arrested, and I'll find out while you're talking. But things have so broken down morally. This is why we're in this spot. I think you and I agree on that, right? Here's the bill, by the way. Here it is. House Bill Democrats passed a bill that allows states to seize children from their parents if they misgender and makes misgendering a discriminatory act. So if the parent doesn't go along with it, they're in trouble. And it affirms it will not prosecute the parent that goes and has their child's genitalia cut off. I mean, when you have this kind of moral breakdown, there's no way your society is going to survive, and certainly not as a union, right? There's going to finally be some states like Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi. There's going to be some of those states that say, we can't agree, and we're not doing this. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be some spark, right? There needs to be some issue that catches the zeitgeist. The problem with the articles you put up is that, 20 years ago, that would have been nationwide news and a whole lot of people would be outraged. And now it's just a Tuesday. Yep. It's like we see this stuff day in and day out. And it is a problem, and it goes beyond religion, in my opinion, because we've talked about how differently, for instance, evangelical Christians poll from Protestants. That's just one way of measuring it, but same book they're teaching out of, and yet mentally, those humans poll very differently. Mm-hmm. And so there's an aspect of self-interest. There's an aspect of integrity that just can't be fixed. I think Trump is doing all of the right things to give America a chance, but it only begins to get us there, right? Like, our entire society was undermined by a collapse in, like you said, in morality, a de-churchification, right? But also in many other ways. So they increased the amount of credit available to people. They made, more competition for jobs. They made it more expensive for the middle class. A rise in single-family households, a rise in dual-income households, right, as globalism concentrated wealth and power at the top. So all of this, and then every institution is undermined too. You have people going into debt for 20 years to go to a college that's going to teach them nothing of value and then propagandize at them for 4 years. Like, how can society exist with those kind of perverse incentives?
And upholding PLO type people like Abbas, that October 7th massacre was a legitimate resistance. That's not just the chairman of the Palestinian Authority. That's college professors. That's what this has been going on for a long time. That they were teaching this. I think I saw a video today, Mark, from 2004. I think it was a 2004 video when let me see if I can find it real quick. When Fox News ran a piece on what was being taught on America's college campuses. And this was 20 years ago. The kids were saying our professors are, teaching, that's not it, guys, are teaching anti-Semitism. They're promoting these ideologies. And I mean, so this has been in the cooker for a while.
It all seems like there was some big grand plan. For decades, they've been squeezing the middle class, globalizing, concentrating wealth in just the biggest companies. A global multi-billion-dollar company has so many advantages now that it's basically crushed debt plate capitalism. And I think we don't have capitalism now. I think we have crony capitalism, and the money buys so much power in the Senate, in the House. And then you have again, both parties working together to cement control of an unelected beast in Washington, D.C. that has been optimized to milk taxpayers. So all that's happening. And then every institution is basically centralizing power in order to support this establishment, mainstream media, all the college professors, everything. And what are these colleges doing? They're milking the taxpayer too. And then they're coming out, if you look at Reddit politics right now, everybody's super stoked because 100% of economists are against Trump's tariff plan. Imagine that. Like, imagine these people who are funded largely by taxpayers shilling for basically shilling for the establishment against the interests of the middle class. And they need the middle class, like 18-year-olds, to go to college, right? And so it's just so unbelievably corrupt. And so, again, if Trump is able to right the economic ship, that makes things a little bit better. That takes a little bit of the pressure off, but we're still stuck in a situation where, like, the church I grew up in, the Methodist Church, is now essentially a progressive political action committee. Like, what do you do with that? How does it get fixed? Probably has to burn down. I don't know. Every single college that I would potentially send my kid to is just completely full of these people who can't separate real world from their luxury belief leftist cult. And it's across, we're talking the same thing about the companies too. It's like, okay, that's great. You fired your DEI department, but like everybody who knew how to do things is gone. And all you have left is all of the people that you hired off of Tumblr and Reddit. Like, all these Zoomers that don't know. So I don't know how it gets fixed, but I can tell you there's desire and demand. And I think this tariff situation really shows the new political coalition that is young internet focused people with families, people who have been squeezed, against people who have largely profited or done well under the system. And I hate to bring age into it. However, I bet you there's a pretty strong Venn diagram overlap of the people crying about their 401ks right now and people who are boomers. Think that those are potentially the Trump people. I had two great boomers growing up. My dad was a Rush Limbaugh listener, but man, he loved Alan Greenspan and he loved the stock market. And the stock market is not the economy for pretty much everybody who's not a boomer. Like, that's the thing. You know what I mean? And you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. But I'll tell you, Trump approval took a little bit of a hit. It was 47% today with a 51% disapproved, but I think it's starting to reverse. Last night's approval was 50%. Right direction dropped to 43, I think, with a 40% overnight. I think it's all just going to be a blip. But the 18 to 39-year-olds, again, they like Trump most, as measured by somewhat and strongly approve. They strongly approve of Trump least. They total approve of Trump most, and their right direction is almost 10 points higher than anybody else. And so the people in the 18 to 39-year-old age bracket, the ones that have to go, they walk to class through these riots on Columbia campus, that have to compete in this modern job market, who can't afford a house, who are trying to find, a long-term mate, maybe, and deal with just the societal wreckage that dating apps and all this other stuff have thrust upon. Those people approve of Trump. And the boomers, I think, the older and high net worth, affluent suburban liberals that have been fueling the Democrat Party, they're the core now. They're out there. They're the ones protesting. It's the same people that were on the National Mall in January of 2017 with those pink hats. And it's dwindling. It's going away. And you can say, oh, well, AOC is going to be the new voice of the party. She doesn't poll that well. The 18 to 39-year-olds are largely with Trump or just politically disconnected.
So if you had to guess today, who will be the candidate in 2020, 2028? Who will it be?
Well, we did a really cool poll. It was funded by us, by Pablo Torre Finds Out, a podcast on Stephen A. Smith. And I've been begging to be able to do something like that because I think it's a really good idea to look at what an outsider does to Democrat poll numbers. Because I think internally there's like a Democrat civil war. They can't figure out the future of the party. Anybody who speaks up will get basically, proverbially drag out behind the woodshed. They did it to Chuck Schumer. And so it's a downward spiral for them. But the problem is, like, nobody within the Democrat confines can believably come out and say our party needs to reform. Like Gavin Newsom's trying to do it, and already he's got a contingent of trans people that are never going to let his campaign succeed. So we did Stephen A. Smith, and I can tell you we asked his favorability numbers. 44% of people said not sure. So that's pretty high. Like, people don't really know who he is. And his net favorability was high, because most people are like, oh, yeah, I guess I somewhat approve of him. And he's an entertainer. People like him. He's got some of the Donald Trump things going for him. And I'm not getting into any of his politics. We didn't really touch that. It's just like, well, how does he do? And he polled in a list among Democrats. Kamala Harris, 40% of Democrat support. Everybody else is like 12% or lower. Shapiro, who everybody's like, oh, he's a great moderate that can do well. Yeah, he doesn't poll that great. Stephen A. Smith was right there with him. In a Democrat primary matchup, Kamala Harris, who is the front runner now, only beat Stephen A. Smith 45% to 24%, 21 points. Reminder, she just had a $3 billion publicity event like less than a year ago, right? And so he's only behind her 20 points in a Democrat primary matchup. And then we tested Smith versus AOC and Newsom, and Newsom was only ahead by 3 points. AOC was only ahead by 4 points. That's wild, because AOC's out there filling stadiums, with paid protests and stuff like that. And we also did a general matchup. And this is a little bit of bad news for Republicans. J.D. Vance only beat Stephen A. Smith by 4 points.
Ooh, wow.
38 to 34. So this is a problem, is that J.D. Vance is not the new Donald Trump yet. And Donald Trump, in my numbers, has a lot of crossover voters that don't show up in most of the other pollsters that are doing online only. I think that's real. I think Donald Trump gets a lot of independents and Democrats out, even more than the exit polling says. And I don't think those people are going to be I don't think the Republicans can count on them to turn out necessarily yet for J.D. Vance in the same levels. And, so far
Mr.
out
Vance
from
might want to start doing interviews, and he could start with taking us up on our multiple requests to interview him. So he might want to start coming out here and doing, because that's how Donald Trump introduced himself, television, Apprentice, and then a ton of interviews, and pretty much every podcast that wanted him, he was willing to go. I mean, I couldn't believe the podcasters that were getting President Trump during the campaign. Pretty much anybody. J.D. Vance better learn from that and start making himself more available. That's my opinion.
Well, J.D. Vance has a Republican Party problem that, in a way that Donald Trump didn't. So Donald Trump's trying to get the Republican Party to support him and enact his agenda right now. But as we've said to you, Donald Trump's agenda is more popular than he is.
Right.
Okay. And I think the reason Donald Trump won on that agenda is because he could believably say, like, no, I am an outsider. I don't need the money. I'm not going to sell out. People trusted him because he was on TV and built an emotional connection to people. And he was also like willing to tell the unvarnished truth in a way that other politicians just aren't. And, whatever you want to say about J.D. Vance right now, he feels like a Republican. Mm-hmm. He talks MAGA, but he feels like a Republican. He's a senator. Donald Trump wasn't a senator. J.D. Vance didn't have a TV show. You know what I'm saying? It's just different. And so it'll come back to, well, is it the same old Republicans? And can they get people out? And as we've seen from these special elections, and, obviously there's some fraud there. We talked about that. But the Republican Party is not MAGA. Like this was one of Donald Trump's big things. Decades he's been talking about these tariffs, and they broke ranks with him on it. This is, people have been waiting for this.
Yep. Well, this in our wrap up here, this is how Donald Trump talks, and this is why people like him.
Congratulations, Brian. And others. We have a couple of senators here. I just don't particularly like them, so I won't introduce. Over the course of this amazing season, the members of this team. I didn't think it was that big a deal, actually. Washington. Over the course.
I mean, would you have ever seen George H. or George W. or any of them talk like that? Or say, I just saw a video today about Barbara Bush was going on and on about how much she couldn't stand Donald Trump and the things he says. And she's passed away now, Barbara has. But it was just, he came and he broke the mold. The way you did things. And he's like, and he started talking like the average American talks about these people in Washington. And they just couldn't stomach it that that he called Jeb weak, called her son weak, at the debates and all. She just could not believe there was a candidate running that would talk the way we do to the TV.
Yeah, and it cemented his popularity. And what was great is just watching everybody try and just clutch pearls and fix the problem the way they always have before. And it's like, why isn't this working?
Clutch pearls, that's a good one when we talk about Barbara Bush. Remember her always wearing her pearls?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like that's what they do. Oh, I can't believe he said that. And they'll run like, 24/7 news cycle on it. I'm sorry, Peggy Noonan, your column just doesn't work. Like, people get Trump in a way that you just can't. Like, it broke a lot of people's brains.
She stopped being interesting 25 years ago.
Yeah. And then Donald Trump just literally destroyed her. Like, literally destroyed this.
I mean, some of these people, I didn't even know they were still living. It's like when you go to Branson. Yeah. You go to Branson and you're like, wait a minute, he's alive? Yeah, he's got a show in Branson. I thought he was dead. No, he's not dead. He's in Branson. That's like Peggy Noonan. Is she still alive? She's so irrelevant, right?
Yeah. I guess. I don't know. I saw she wrote something like a week or two ago. I was like, no, I'm not playing along.
No, she's irrelevant. You didn't even read her.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I did a lot like years ago.
Right, exactly, but not now. Right.
Yeah, no.
All right, so in closing.
But yeah, with Vance, he doesn't have it, It's like you call Grace Chung a mouth breathing imbecile. It just hits different. It doesn't have like the wink that Trump insults have. And
how about Eric Trump? You see anything that shows us Eric Trump or Donald Trump Jr.?
Oh, we haven't polled on those. I don't know. I don't know if they're in for the fight that it would be, but who knows? Maybe it's a dynasty. Who knows? But 38%, like, that's pretty good. J.D. Vance was getting 67% of the Republican vote. And Stephen A. Smith was only getting 55% of the Democrat vote.
And I barely know who he is. I barely know who he is. He's a black gentleman on ESPN, right?
Yep.
That's about all
talks about sports. Yeah, that's about all I knew, too. He's been talking about the Democrat Party needing reform. And very few people are, and so he's getting attention because of that. He's going on like The View and stuff talking about these things, and it's true. They need to back off the brink. All the voters all agree with that. They want the party to moderate, and they haven't, and they can't. And I think it's because they're just so invested in all the tactics and techniques they've been using for decades in order to concentrate power.
Yep.
Maybe they're worried about people flipping. I don't know. Like, all right, who knows where it's going to go?
Well. Wherever it goes, you'll be tracking it because that's what you do at Rasmussen. Give all your socials and website and everything, Mark.
We stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9:00 Eastern, usually. Rasmussen_poll on Twitter, Honest Pollster on Twitter, Rasmussen_poll on YouTube, and Rasmussen Reports at Rumble.
And he'll also be a keynote speaker at our national conference coming up October 3rd and 4th in the Collierville, Tennessee area outside of Memphis. And he'll be there along with a lot of other great folks you're going to want to meet and hear and speak in person. We only have 350 seats and well over 100 of them already gone. So get your tickets while they last, worldviewstore.com. Mark, as always, thank you for your time.
Yeah, great to be here.
Mark Mitchell checking in tonight, folks. Follow him on all the socials and on their website as well. All right, folks, 1 week from tonight, we will be in Waukesha outside of Milwaukee for our first Worldview rally that we've held in 7 years. We have over 1,000 people registered, and you can register. It's free, and you can still register, okay, at worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/events. Yep, we have security. Some of you say, are you guys going to have security there? Yeah, we sure are. So come on and join us. And if you can't be there, pray for us. Pray for safety and travel for everybody else that's coming there, a great event, the health of the speakers, to stay in good voice and good health, okay? Pray for us, will you? If you can't be there. Now, if you can't be there in person, but you'd like to watch it live, we will be live streaming it if you're a member of the Vault. And you can join the Vault. But first of all, let me just reiterate. If you want to be there, you need to register so we put out enough chairs. Okay, we got over 1,000 registered right now. You can get your tickets for free at worldviewtube.com/events. Register every person singly. You can use the same email address, but keep popping in their names as you register them so we can count them as a chair, okay? worldviewtube.com/events. Now, if you'd like to live stream it from the comfort of your home, all you got to do is join our Vault. worldviewtube.com/vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. Join, very nominal fee. Get you also access to our 35-year library, my books, ebooks, radio shows, TV shows, conference DVDs, and more. Worldviewtube.com/events, worldviewtube.com/vault, and you'll be able to live stream the event 1 week from tonight. Worldviewtube.com/vault. Joining me now is David Pyne. During the elections, David Pyne was predicting. He was stating that his fear was that Zelensky might attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. Were there connections between Ukraine and July 13th assassination attempt and then the other one while he was at his golf course in Florida? Joining me now is David Pyne. He's been looking into it. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Bradley, great to be with you.
You just keep covering such cutting-edge stuff every day. I'm like, okay, I got to get David Pyne back on. He's covering a very interesting topic today. Every day you're doing this, so good for you. Tell me about the 2 assassination attempts and a possible connection to Ukraine and Zelensky.
Yeah, so the first Trump assassin was initially identified as someone with very strong connections to Ukraine, and that was in the mainstream liberal press, and then suddenly they basically said, no, it's not that guy. It's a guy by the name of Thomas Matthew Crooks. And then, we all thought it was Thomas Crooks. And then the FBI decided to dispose of the body and water down all the blood residue. So in advance of a congressionally authorized investigation, to confirm that was indeed who the assassin was, based on, the body's DNA and blood samples, and that that's really kind of cast new light on the possibility. Why would they do that? Obviously, there was something they wanted to cover up, and the main possibility, of course, is that it wasn't who they said it was, and they were trying to cover up the Ukraine connections. And then that was on July 16th, of course, in Butler, Pennsylvania, and then September 15th. At the West Palm Beach golf course, then Ryan Ruth, who has extensive ties to CIA, has been arrested by some accounts 100 to 150 times, never served a day in jail until he was, indicted for the Trump assassination attempt, made an attempt on Trump's life and thankfully was foiled by a Secret Service sniper.
But I want to back up there quick, David. He was arrested 150 times?
According to one account, he was arrested between 100 and 150 times without serving a day in jail. So he had numerous run-ins from the law. He had deep CIA ties. Basically, he seems to have believed. And if you watch the arrest, he was. He was almost smiling. He was feeling very secure. Nothing was going to happen to him. He was a protected CIA asset, so he wasn't going to stay in jail very long. He didn't understand that the change of administration would kind of change things, change the outcome a little bit. He was a really unsavory character, and he was a recruiter for the Ukrainian Foreign Legion. So he traveled to Kyiv multiple times. There are videos of him in Kyiv, and he was, trying to recruit for Ukraine, had extensive ties to the Ukrainian, military. And now we find out today, breaking news, Jack Posobiec is reporting that he actually requested either Stinger missiles or RPGs from the Ukrainian military to use to shoot down Trump Force One during the presidential campaign.
Which I think is something we were talking about for many months, and talking about 5,000 man pads missing from Venezuela, going back many years. And you and I and Leo and others sat here and said, I really am worried about him flying around in a plane, so clearly marked Trump on the side. I wish he'd stop doing this. We then found out later, supposedly one day, he wasn't on that plane. It was a decoy. He was on another. So apparently even the Secret Service was taking it seriously enough to do that. Wow. Leave it to the CIA apparently, to have tried another attempt on a president, which I think they were involved in with, JFK.
Yeah, I think
JFK.
That's very possible. I've always said that the CIA took out JFK because he wanted peace with the Soviet Union,
Exactly.
and now Trump wants peace with Russia, and suddenly he's one of the assassins has extensive CIA ties. So that's certainly a very strong possibility.
Let's go to another article today it was everywhere when I woke up this morning. Apparently, there's been a Chinese gentleman found fighting for Russia in Ukraine. I mean, that's swirling everywhere. I'm not over there, so I can't validate it. I didn't interview him. But that's what's swirling. What do you make of this?
Well, yeah, there's at least 3 articles confirming that there were at least 3 Chinese volunteers serving with the Russian forces and fighting Ukraine that were captured. And those, it's unclear, of course, if they're active PLA soldiers or if they're volunteers. It's been reported that not only are there Chinese volunteers fighting with the Russians, but also Cubans, communist Cubans, and communist Venezuelan volunteers. And Colombians as well, because there are a lot of Marxist guerrillas in Colombia. And of course, an entire division of Korean People's Army soldiers fighting in the Kursk region. So this is not a surprise, I think, to you and I. I think we were discussing this, no later than late last year. Reports that China was considering sending troops, and certainly on a larger scale than this, to fight with Russia and Ukraine. It was actually reported in January of 2023 by Condi Rice, former U.S. Secretary of State, that China was actually considering joining the war in a more formal way. So, that hasn't materialized yet, of course, but I don't think we should be surprised that Chinese volunteers are fighting with Russian forces against Ukraine.
How about this article? The Houthis outsmarted Washington today, an article over at National Interest. A lot of Americans, of course, are not following any of this. It's a lot of people just don't follow. They turned the TVs off a long time ago on politics and all of this, and they've quit following it. So I know a lot of Americans, this audience obviously is very, very, very informed, but a lot of Americans don't even know what this is about and how it could impact all of us here on our soil. But you're saying that the U.S. Navy, on your tweet today, the U.S. Navy has proven unable to win a war against the Houthis. They control less than 15% of Yemen and continue to block shipping in the Red Sea. What makes U.S. leaders believe that it could win a war against the PLA Navy in their own backyard? Talk to me about this, please.
Yeah, so the Houthis, they control the capital of Yemen, but they don't control much of Yemen. Most of Yemen is controlled by U.S. and Saudi-backed, ousted government control forces. But Trump decided to restart Biden's war against the Houthis. There was no real trigger for it. The Houthis had not conducted any attacks against Red Sea shipping for a 2-month period ever since the Trump pressured ceasefire was put into place. They were pretty happy with that. Even after Israel started bombing Gaza and re-invaded Gaza, the Houthis did not launch any strikes against U.S. shipping. But for some reason, the Trump administration decided to engage in this massive bombing campaign that's been ongoing for in excess of 2 weeks, perhaps even going on 3 weeks. On some days, there have been up to 65 sorties, bombings against the Houthi. We call them Houthi rebels. I mean, they control the capital, but again, only 15% of the country of Yemen. But this alone doesn't pose a threat to the U.S. There's no danger of escalation. But what there is a danger of is greatly depleting, the U.S. Tomahawk and other long-range precision strike munitions that we would need to deter a Chinese blockade or invasion of Taiwan. I mean, our supplies of precision strike munitions are getting critically low to the point where, China may well judge that the U.S. is not only unwilling, but is also unable to respond militarily to a Chinese encirclement of Taiwan.
All right, anything else we should have on our radar before we let you go tonight?
Well, there was, and there's been a lot of, Armed Services Committee hearings in both the Senate and the House, and I thought it was really disgraceful that the two top senators on the Senate Armed Services Committee were wearing, instead of U.S. lapel pins, they were wearing dual U.S. and Ukrainian flag lapel pins, demonstrating to me their dual loyalties, not to the U.S. but also to Ukraine. I think it would be really important if we could ban anyone that has professed these dual loyalties. It is not loyal to the United States of America and putting the U.S. first, because it really risks getting us into unnecessary wars, up to and including a nuclear war with Russia. Over Ukraine that could destroy the country.
Yeah. I want to go real quick to a video by the Secretary of Defense. He's been in Panama the last day or so. Listen to this.
To be very clear, China did not build this canal. China does not operate this canal. And China will not weaponize this canal. Together with Panama in the lead, we will keep the canal secure and available for all nations through the deterrent power of the strongest, most effective, and most lethal fighting force in the world. We will do this in partnership with Panama. Together, we will take back the Panama Canal from China's influence. And we will do this along with other capable, like-minded allies and partners. This is what peace through strength looks like.
Your thoughts on that, David?
Well, unfortunately, the fact is, as Trump has pointed out, that China does control the Panama Canal effectively because they control the canal ports, and they've had ununiformed PLA troops by the hundreds, several hundreds, stationed there. So, absent U.S. military intervention, they could very easily shut it down minimally. If they believe their control is being threatened. So they could sink a ship in the harbor. They could, or rather not in the canal itself to block it. It could take several months, to remove the ship.
Just like we saw with the ship that hit the bridge in Baltimore, right, David?
Absolutely, yeah. The Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore was likely a Chinese cyber attack on a ship that propelled it in exactly the direction it needed to hit in order to take out the bridge. And that's one of the key ports on the East Coast for all kinds of important things that, reduced our ability to export things by about 20%.
And I think actually put some ships on the other side of that were military as well, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think we have like maybe 24 total main transports that are used to rapidly redeploy U.S. troops from CONUS, from the continental U.S. to abroad, and 4 of them were there. So it took out almost a fifth or about a sixth of our rapid troop transport capabilities. dpyne.substack.com. If you want to follow him on his X account. Get up to the top. There it is. dpyne.substack.com. And you can also follow him on his, dpyne.substack.com is his Substack, but you want to follow him on X. It's at America First Con. And the con stands for? Conservative.
Okay.
America First Conservative. Okay. Just ran out of space.
Conservative. There you go. Ran out of space. At America First Con, or America Conservative, or DPyne, D-P-Y-N-E, dpyne.substack.com. David, as always, thank you for keeping us aware of what's going on.
Thanks, Brandon. Keep up the great work.
You too. Thank you, David. All right, folks, before we continue, gold has dropped. With all this going on in the market, gold has dropped. So it might be a good time to jump in and buy, folks, right? buy low, sell high, right? Or you could do dollar cost averaging. For some of you already have it. So go and get your free packet on gold, getting your free packet of information. Just click the button, more information. The form will pop up and you can get a free, no obligation packet of information on getting precious metals, gold, silver, putting gold into your IRA, the difference between bullion and numismatic. I've been working with Swiss America for over 16 years. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of my radio and TV audience have as well. So please check it out, worldviewgold.com. Joining me now is Todd Benman of CIS.org, Todd Benman, CIS.org, and toddbenman.com. Todd, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here again. Thanks.
So we broke a story about with the United Truckers, all of these illegals in America driving 18-wheelers under fake CDL licenses. They're being given license up in Canada. They're coming down here. These are not Canadians. They are foreigners. They're from Somalia. They're from the Middle East. We detailed news stories, showed local news reports, how these guys are running over families, killing one family of 4, killing a guy in Colorado. I mean, this is a huge, huge story no one's talking about. And we brought them on my 74 stations a couple of days in a row. We had them here. We pushed it out all over social media, every platform we can. We just pumped it for 6-7 days. Fox News picked us up. And the story, I should say, pick up the story 6 days later, interviewed those two guys. They sent us a message saying, thank you for helping us get on Fox. And we were happy to do it. And I'm glad Fox carried them. It's a huge story. Are you aware of this story? Were you aware of it before it broke?
I had not been aware of it. I did recently see it in the news, so I didn't know it was traced to you. Congratulations. That's an important story. Very important story, especially if people are dying as a result. Questions I have, first of all, I've always known that immigrants have gravitated toward, those kinds of jobs, truck driving jobs. And that's okay if you're legal, and that's okay if the states that issue the licenses are properly policing and enforcing their rules, and the people that hold them, making sure that they're not fraudulent, for example, making sure that people involved in accidents are held to account and might have to have those suspended, that sort of thing. And so the big question I have is whether that is happening, especially in blue states that want illegal immigrants to work at any cost, even if it means the lives of innocent people, other pedestrians and drivers. So, are blue states not policing those what are they called? CDLs?
CDLs, yep.
CDLs, that's right. And are they not policing for fraud? Because I think part of the story is that they're fraudulent, that the licenses themselves might be fraudulent.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of evidence to that. And there's some legislation being offered up in states like United Truckers is helping do in Arkansas, and groups are opposing them and thinking that, well, one more piece of paperwork you file will help overcome that. Well, if you're doing fraud and you're doing counterfeit, one more piece of paperwork's not going to fix that. We got to go deeper than that. Logan, do we have the cleaned up version where that guy ran over that family and is being confronted? There was too much swearing in it to air it as is. But I want you to watch this because this is right up your alley when it comes to the cartels and them making fake CDLs. Here we go. Stop it, Dolly. Here we go.
I got the right Shannon, did I?
There's more than one on the list. I was going to say, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I think I'm going to be super brief because I anticipate some questions. So I'll just elaborate. I'm sorry, Shannon Newton, President, Arkansas Trucking Association. As Representative Hawk said, it was brought to our attention by the Texas Department of Public Safety that they had identified some fraudulent CDLs. Primarily, they were being sold by the cartel, and it has been verified. Even in Arkansas, there was a case when a person was incarcerated in our state and was delivered a fake Mexican LLC in prison. And so verify that that is a real thing. And so in order to thwart that, the Texas solution was to require this additional form of ID, which is issued by the United States, whether it be a work permit or work visa. Those are U.S. documents. And that is a way to verify that the individual that is presenting that foreign CDL is who they say they are and is here working legally.
Okay, so another piece of paper is going to fix this problem. I'm not so sure it will. But notice that she says that, hey, yeah, it's been proven. So even the guys at United Truckers were saying, here's the testimony of the Arkansas Trucking Association, who supports foreign CDLs and non-domicile CDLs on American highways. The opponent to Arkansas Secure and Safe Roads Act goes on the record in Senate Judiciary's testimony as the sole witness, speaking in support of their opposing bill. She even admits, yeah, the cartels are making these. We talked with the guys at American Truckers a couple times now, and one of the things I brought up was, what about our food? What about bioweapons? What about terrorist groups? You got Middle Easterners that could be tied to terror cells, poisoning food, poisoning meat. Well, you know, I mean, the level of danger here on a national security is big. Comment?
Yeah, I mean, really what comes to mind here is that there needs to be a federal authority come in to investigate this, whether it's Congress or the Department of Transportation or even the FBI. This is interstate by nature. So people who are driving long haul freight using fraudulent licenses or suspended licenses, somebody probably needs to get to the investigative bottom of the rings that are providing those fraudulent documents, creating them, and break them up, bust them, put them in prison. And also, you kind of have to hold the trucking companies accountable to a certain extent as well.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what they're saying. They want cheap drivers. And the guys at United Truckers are saying that some of these trucking companies are destroying the livelihood for middle-class American drivers because they're driving the wages down with all of this cheap, foreign, illegal driving. Yeah, that's a story as old as slavery. There's always been this argument, well, we get our cotton cheap this way, but it's immoral to do that, to hire cheap labor because it's cheap, and to probably abuse the workers as well, who don't have any other choices and that sort of thing. I mean, the whole system of labor, of cheap immigrant labor, is riven with abuse and fraud, much like slavery was back, the institution back in the antebellum period, in my view. So anyway, that's a great story. I'm very concerned about the public safety, the highway safety aspect of this. My family drives. We all are on the road. Exactly.
And that to me, calls for federal oversight of some sort.
Let's talk about the Supreme Court. So Trump's had a few victories here with the court. Tell me about it. What are your thoughts on these victories?
Well, for example, the main Supreme Court victory that everybody's talking about, which is to allow the president to use the Alien Enemies Act to deport people, Venezuelan gangsters and terrorists, to El Salvador. It sounds good until you look at the fine print of that. What the court did was said, okay, you can continue to do this. However, you have to put them through due process, which is a kind of hearing, habeas corpus hearing, which can take a long time and involve appeals to appeals, et cetera, with a bunch of ACLU lawyers and NGO lawyers at their beck and call, kind of gumming up this whole thing. And so in that sense, practically, logistically speaking, that requirement by the Supreme Court is very bad. It means that they're not going to be able to use it in any kind of a large scale way.
So it doesn't give us a clue as to how the courts are going to be deciding future cases.
No, because now you've got the Supreme. So they have to go back to square one. The plaintiffs, which means they're going to file in Texas. If they haven't already, they will tomorrow, I'm sure. And then relitigate the whole thing, because the Supreme Court also did not settle the matters at hand, which is the key ones, which is whether that 1798 law can be used in the way that they're using it right now. Is there an invasion by another country? Are we at war? Those are the fundamentals of whether you can use that. Trump is saying, yeah, we've had an invasion and yeah, we're at war, but it's not settled. It's in court. So the courts in Texas will decide that, and then it'll make its way to the Supreme Court ultimately, and whether they take it or not. But to me, the bigger problem is that, yeah, they're cleared to use it, but they also are going to be gummed up by the processes that the Supreme Court ordered here. So I'm not as excited as other people are on that. It looks like a Pyrrhic victory, as they say, to me. That's just one man's opinion.
Okay, you wrote an article decoding Trump's border counterterrorism order over at the Jewish Policy Center. Tell me about this, and is he doing, his war on fentanyl? I mean, what are you what is he doing you're happy about? Because I know there are some things you are happy about, right?
Yeah, the border's closed. I just came back. The numbers show us that there are 200 to 300 a day being apprehended by Border Patrol from Tijuana all the way to Matamoros. That is, I don't think that we've ever had a number that low, like in the history of record keeping of border crossing. So that is like unbelievable, not to me, but to probably most people. I've always said on your show and everywhere else that it would take the Trump administration approximately 1 hour to end that mass migration crisis. You had 10,000 and 14,000 a day crossing, and now it's 250 a day. Border, I mean, that's really stupendous. And I was down there on both sides of the border in Juarez and in El Paso very recently. I've been writing stories off of that trip. I just came back from Del Rio and Acuna, and it's the same thing.
This is your footage right here, right?
Yeah. I mean, right there, that footage right there, a year ago was filled with thousands of immigrants right there. All along those riverbanks, they were just pouring in because they were letting them in. You get to go right through the turnstile. Now we are deporting and detaining 100% of everyone we catch. And nobody wants to come in and subject themselves to that. They come in so that they can get released. And that's the only reason they come in. They get released. So there's a deterrence going on there. And then fentanyl is another good news story. I wrote for the Daily Wire less than a week ago that the number of seizures of fentanyl on the U.S. side is down by 50%, which is a big indicator that total smuggling is down probably more of fentanyl. Why is that? Because Donald Trump put these tariff threat in place against the Mexicans and told them, if you don't stop that fentanyl, we're going to wreck your whole economy and your whole country. So the Mexican army has been down in Culiacan, Mexico, where it's the central hub of fentanyl production, raiding all of those labs, destroying all those labs, arresting 10,000 fentanyl producers.
10,000?
10,000 arrests of people that make fentanyl down in that area, that Sinaloa cartel controlled territory. They never would dare go in there except to collect their cut. But now they're in there wreaking havoc.
And where is that again? Where are those arrests occurring?
It's on the southwest coast of Mexico, kind of think across from Baja, Sinaloa State. That's the hub of fentanyl production.
And that's the Mexican government obviously doing that, right?
Mexican army has gone in there and slaughtered the whole industry.
And it's because of the tariffs. Trump says you better do this.
And yeah, and that's, by the way, that's not just me talking about it. I interviewed Derek Maltz, who is the head of the DEA, Trump's head of the DEA right now, acting. And, I ran this all by him, and he said, yeah, absolutely. They have just laid waste to the fentanyl labs down there. And it's such a problem for business, for the cartels. Derek Maltz says that the cartels have made a strategic business decision to not smuggle that stuff into the United States anymore. We'll see if that bears out. But if it's true, because, fentanyl was the one product line that they had very successful for them that was creating massive international havoc between the two partners, the White House and the palace down there in Mexico. So that's just too much trouble. So let's just cut out fentanyl. And actually, Maltz said that they're going to probably keep producing it, but they'll ship it to Europe instead.
Oh, wow.
Kill them.
But think about this. The tariffs are saving lives, and the mainstream media is not reporting. President Trump's tariffs are saving countless lives just with how he's using them for the war on fentanyl.
Now, I don't want to be too Pollyanna about this because I'm skeptical. I'm a skeptic on this sort of thing. Usually these cartels will find some way to keep it going. But I think that time is going to tell us whether the trend solidifies. March, I'm being told, is already low seizures, lower even than January and February
So
seizures.
right now the indication is it's working.
Yes. And by the way, if you read my Daily Wire piece, it's up on my site, toddbensman.com. I go into I quote the New York Times reporter who went into Culiacan after Trump was elected and saw the raids and saw the labs being dismantled and interviewed fentanyl producers who said, we are out of business down here. Everybody is running and hiding. We're out of business. There's no more fentanyl being produced here. And the New York Times reporter credited Donald Trump's trade tariffs. Now, these people are not big Donald Trump fans. They're just stating what they know to be true, which is that those tariffs forced the Mexican government to order the army in and to take care of that business down there. And the New York Times reporter said it, and I've got it linked. All of that's linked in there. And their story says it too, the New York Times story. So just saying, there is other good news happening at the border.
Wow, that's great. I'm getting a report now. Any American military intervention?
Are they asking?
Against the cartels.
Yes.
Yeah. Supposedly, the Mexican president saying that she is going to reject any American military intervention against the cartels, and I was just trying to verify it. So you already know about this?
Well, what I'm talking about is that the United States has really ramped up clandestine spy overflights to pinpoint where the labs are and where the high value human targets are. Those spy flights are responsible for Mexico being able to nab two of the biggest cartel chieftains down there and ship them to the United States. That was a CIA operation. That was a spy flight operation. And we are doing more spy flights over Mexico at their authorization, which I think is military. And we've got destroyers, 2 destroyers now off the Pacific coast of Mexico, interdicting ponga boats and anybody trying to move drugs and people around on the ocean with the U.S. Coast Guard And these are warships that were brought in from like the Red Sea, from Yemen area, where they were on patrol and doing that sort of thing, protecting shipping. They brought them in to do that. The CIA has been redeployed from Ukraine and from the Middle East into Mexico. That's New York Times and Washington Post reporting that they have really trebled up on CIA officers to do counter narcotics in Mexico. And the Green Berets were deployed, about a dozen of them, to train naval infantry, Mexican naval infantry, in non-conventional warfare down there. And we've also put other, they're called littoral combat ships, LCSs, into the Gulf of America along the Mexican coast line where they're patrolling for drugs. And so there's pressure. There's military pressure on both sides, on the water and in the air. And on the ground, on our side of the border, are striker brigades. Have you ever seen one of those strikers?
I have.
Eight-wheeled tanks?
Yes.
If you've ever been inside one, I'm jealous. I want to go on a ride.
No, I've never been in one.
And the 10th Mountain Division has been deployed to West Texas and Arizona to work the mountains for fentanyl and drug smuggling. And so the Mexicans have U.S. military in the air, in the sea, and on land on all sides. Those cartels want to try something. I wouldn't be too surprised if Donald Trump did order an incursion.
Wow. Great news tonight. Great report, Todd. ToddBensman.com. You can follow him on X, ToddBensman.com. And you can follow him at Bensman Todd. That's his handle. At Bensman Todd, or just, again, his website. We can find his books and articles and everything, ToddBensman.com. So there you go. Great report. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Dolly thanks you as well. She apologizes for barking. Apparently somebody's come into the studio, I was told. I cannot hear them, and I certainly cannot smell them. But she apparently can hear them and smell them, and she was alerting me that someone had come into the building. She does that with our cleaner as well.
Good watchdog. I've met that dog.
Yes,
that's a sweet dog.
She liked you. She warmed up to you very quickly, which shocked me because she's kind of skittish of most people, but she warmed up to you right away. But yeah, whenever she hears, I guess she hears, and I think she actually smells the cleaner come in the building, because our air system obviously is pumping smells through it, and she'll start acting a certain way. I'm like, I have no idea what's bothering her, and then I go out of the studio and the cleaner's there. She doesn't like the brooms, the vacuum cleaner. So anyway, I was like, why is she giving us grief right now? She doesn't normally do this. And I got communication that someone's come in the building. I don't hear them. I certainly don't smell them, but apparently she's hearing them and smelling them. So yes, she's very good. She's doing her job. So she alerted us there were people in the building.
Earning her free medical care, food and board.
She is. She absolutely is. So there you go. I just want everybody to know why she's misbehaving tonight. ToddBensman.com. Thank you, Todd.
All right. Take care.
Todd Benman checking in. Check out his site, won't you? All right, guys, one of our other sponsors, as you know, is WorldviewWater.net. WorldviewWater.net takes out all kinds of harmful chemicals in our water. I have one for underneath my kitchen sink, that one right there in the middle, the second one over from the left, or to the right there. That is under my kitchen sink. I have one for my shower, this one here on the bottom, far right. This is a wonderful product that also not only puts oxygen and magnesium into the water, but takes out all these harmful chemicals. We just got another shipment in the other day to our warehouse, so please consider going now. WorldviewWater.net, WorldviewWater.net. You'll also find them on our sponsors page, WorldviewWater.net. Joining me now is Nick Helscher. He is the administrator of the McCullough Foundation. Nick, there's a lot of breaking news today related to these COVID shots. Turns out they are even more dangerous to the heart than initially thought. And of course, the shot was for the COVID, right? The SARS-CoV-2. And it turns out that the heart damage is far more, permanent than anything you would have gotten from if you just got the COVID, right?
Right. And this study that came out today, the first author is Nathaniel Mead. He has basically done a absolutely fantastic job spearheading this study. And this is a McCullough Foundation study. Myself, I'm on there. Dr. Peter McCullough is on there. Dr. William Mackis, Jessica Rose. Many of you have heard of them. And so what we did is we collated about 340 peer-reviewed references, and we looked, does the virus cause more myocarditis? Does the vaccine cause more? Because our public health agencies have claimed that the virus causes way more severe myocarditis, and we found that's completely false. Completely false. In fact, the vaccine causes not only more myocarditis, but more severe myocarditis, even with a 10 to 20% fatality rate. And so we completely debunked the public health messaging that has been perpetuated for the past few years. It's clear the vaccines are more severe. They cause more damage than the virus itself when it comes to the heart.
Huh. And of course, this is being, I'm sure, reported by ABC, CBS, NBC, and CNN, and all of them tonight, right?
Yeah, it's all over. It's all over. It's breaking news.
No one's other than a few conservative outlets are paying attention to this, are they?
Right.
Because they all got, most of those networks got government money to push the shots, didn't they?
They did, and they still do. They still do get big pharma money, so they're not going to share any of these studies, unfortunately.
Which, of course, is why this network is so necessary, and your work is so necessary. All right, let's go to another story. Two studies now confirm that the flu shots increase the risk of both flu and other infections. Okay, well, I've never had a flu shot. I've never had a flu shot my whole life. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying I just was always suspicious. I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're guessing on the strain, right? They don't really know what strain's going to go around. So I'm like, this is just a moneymaker. But I was also worried about what, mercury or metals might be in the shot. Was that a right gut instinct on my part?
Yeah, well, clearly these two studies show that not only does the flu vaccination increase your risk of flu by 27%, and that study was by Shrestha and colleagues out of the Cleveland Clinic. Over 40,000 people were in that study. So this is a robust study, very credible. It is in preprint, but it will be published soon, most definitely. And then the other study found 340% increased risks of other viruses when you get the flu shot. And so not only are you getting more flu, you're getting more coronaviruses and more other infections. And it's just ridiculous that our public health, CDC, they had a campaign called Mild to Wild, where they were saying, you go get your flu shot, it's not going to be mild, it's going to be wild. And so it's absolutely ridiculous. But HHS actually canceled that campaign a few months ago, rightfully so. And you're right about the toxins. They're full of things that are not healthy for the body. And whenever you inject something that is what's called a pro-oxidant, it's going to induce what's called oxidative stress, and it's going to cause problems in your body. And it's just something we have to move away from.
Let's talk about this one. I know this is a totally different study, right? This one here, 85 million person study finds increased risk of stroke, heart attack, coronary artery disease, and arrhythmia following COVID-19 vaccination. That's different from the first one we talked about, right?
Yeah, this is another study. This one's absolutely shocking. And they had 85 million people. So it was a review paper. They collected all of the large-scale studies. They looked at cardiovascular health and had a control group. So that's what's key about this. 40 million got the shots, 40 million didn't, and were served as controls or placebos, basically. And they still found these massive increased risks of stroke, heart attack, coronary artery disease, arrhythmias. And so these shots, and this should be like definitive proof that they absolutely batter your cardiovascular system. It corroborates a study last week that shows these micro scars in the myocardium after booster injections. They're absolutely cardiotoxic, and they do not belong in people's arms at this point in time. There's too much evidence. They have to get off the market as soon as possible. They should not be being given to 1 million American babies and 9 million American children.
Yet they're still being given. And where are all those people that were calling us psychotic? We suffered from psychological problems because we wouldn't wear the mask, we wouldn't get the shot. I mean, it was on national TV, national talk show hosts, actors, actresses, politicians, so-called doctors, medical so-called experts. I mean, it was nonstop. You know, if you did not get the shot, you have to be probably one of the most free-thinking, independent, courage of your convictions kind of people, right? Because there was a lot of pressure, even at, Protestant, evangelical, Bible-believing churches. They were pushing it. So-called ministries were pushing it. We found out later some of them were getting money. They're NGOs, and they were getting money, some of them. But even little old ladies at your church would walk up to friends of mine and say, "Have you had your shot? Have you had your shot? Well, don't get close to me. Don't get close to me if you haven't had your shot." And friends of mine would go to the church, and that's how they'd be greeted. And they're like, "I don't know if we want to go back anymore. I think we might be done with this thing." Really? That's how brainwashed. Now, these were Bible teaching churches. I know one of the churches is in my town, and it's a Bible teaching church. And the older people were bullying other people in their own age demographic. I know one guy in town who's a pastor. He got the shot. He didn't want to. A lot of his family members didn't get it. They're like, nah. He got it. You know why? He said the older people in his church kept saying, "Pastor, did you get the shot? Did you get the shot? Did you get the shot?" They didn't want him around them if he didn't get the shot. So the pressure that came from the media, actors, actresses, politicians, medical experts, but family members, "Oh, you can't come to holiday. You can't come to Christmas. You can't come to Thanksgiving. You can't see your grandchild," right? But then you go to church. You go to what is supposed to be a conservative Bible teaching church, and these people have bought it hook, line, and sinker and drank the Kool-Aid. So for those who didn't get the shot, that is a really independent, strong person. We need to find out all the people that didn't take the shot, and those people are the ones we should be, I think, consulting with and asking to lead and have positions in our community and states, because they show a fortitude and a clearness of mind that we need in local, state, and federal governments.
Wow, you put that absolutely beautifully, because you're right. People who refuse them, less than 20% of Americans that did refuse them, they had to face one of the most intensive segregation campaigns since we segregated against black people. I mean, that's what happened these past 5 years. Yep. And so they would just label you as a conspiracy theorist, as an endangerment to public health. You'd be fired from your job. Your friends would not talk to you anymore. And you were just outcasted. And myself, I didn't get the shot, thankfully. I even went to University of Michigan, one of the most blue campuses you could think of. And I still didn't get the shot, because I didn't want to get the shot. And I did everything I could to not get it. And so this has to be a lesson for people who regret getting the shot going forward. When they release the next self-amplifying replicon shots, don't take them. If they mandate them, don't take them. Because if everybody doesn't comply the next time, they're not going to get away with mandating it this time.
Yeah, indeed. Let's go to this one. The biopharmaceutical complex is real. Well, that kind of fits in. This is a great segue, because this is who was involved in all of it. Tell me about it.
Yes, and as you can see in that figure there, I mean, you can see just how large this complex is and how much power they exert. And, it starts at the top with the international organizations, these NGOs, including the Gates Foundation, SAPI, Gavi, World Health Organization, World Economic Forum. We've all heard of them. They have the money. They're funding these things. They're funding the countermeasures, the vaccines. They're even funding the biolabs. And then we have public health authorities there on the right. We know they're compromised, obviously, from the past 5 years. They rubber stamp anything that gets put in front of their desk, including novel genetic injections that were barely tested in humans. And in fact, in booster shots, they never test them in humans before rollout. And so we have the rubber stampers there. Then we have government and biodefense there on the bottom. They're playing an instrumental role, especially BARDA. BARDA was instrumental in funding a lot of these genetic countermeasures and in the development of them, as well as ARPA-H. And then we have all these governments there across the world that allowed this to perpetuate and implement lockdowns and mandates. And then we have pharmaceutical corporations to top it all off, which are obviously, as we all know, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, all these organizations that have developed these mRNA shots. And now, as you can see there, a new addition is Arcturus Therapeutics. They make self-amplifying replicon injections. And so they make up that part. And all together, they make up this global syndicate that makes countermeasures, and they make the biological threats. So they have the virus and the vaccine, and then they release it out onto the world. Absolutely terrible. They have to be dismantled.
Indeed. All right, let's go to another one. Fluoride. I mean, this just keeps coming up and coming up. The dangers of fluoride. I don't know where it is in your feed today, but I was going through your feed to see what you're talking about. Here it is right here. Fluoride is highly toxic and not essential for any biological function. It lowers IQ and fails to prevent tooth decay. The industrial waste used of fluoride water can burn through concrete, yet we put it in our water. We offer a water purifier here. If you go to worldviewwater.net, worldviewwater.net, I have one in my home, an under the sink filter, and that's the water I drink. That's the water that, we give our beloved Dolly. Obviously you believe this, you posted it. So when we offer this kind of product to our audience that takes out the fluoride and all these other toxins, I know you're an epidemiologist, so I don't want to go too far here with putting you on the spot, but is this the kind of thing we should be doing until they get this out of our water, right? Is filtering this?
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah. We need purified water. We do not want water contaminated with any of those things listed on the screen. All of these things are highly toxic to humans. They got to get out of our water supply. And yeah, water filters are absolutely essential.
And why did they begin doing the fluoride? Did they really think it prevented tooth decay, or was it just like so many things, just another money-making scheme?
I think it was one of those money-making schemes back in, I believe, the 40s and 50s. There was all these conflicts of interest with the sugar industry trying to blame tooth decay on something else and said, oh, look, it's because nobody's getting fluoride. And so there's a whole history behind it that's clearly corrupted, and it should have never been installed in the first place. They should not be putting hydrofluorosilicic acid, which literally burns through concrete in its undiluted form, into our water supply. It's absolutely toxic. Doesn't belong there. Doesn't belong in the human body. It's in it's in groundwater in natural levels, but we don't want to add this artificial version that's very dangerous.
I think there used to be fluoride tablets for children. It'd be a little packaging. I think that was when I was a kid. I remember people would. I didn't know. My mom didn't give me those particularly to me at all. But I remember somebody having these little pinkish looking tablets, and this kind of wrapper like candy comes in, and I thought it was candy, and it was fluoride tablets. Now I'm 56 this month, so you probably don't remember that kind of thing. But at one time, they were passing out some kind of tablets to children, like candy, fluoride tablets.
Well, that goes to show just how much things change over time. Because to me, that sounds absolutely shocking. Like I can't even believe that. But I guess it's like the same thing as injecting mRNA shots into 6-month-olds. So I guess we haven't evolved too much since then. But
Isn't that the truth? All right, you can find all of his great work over here on his website. Let me find it here, guys, real quick. I opened it up. I know I have it here. Let's see. Why don't you tell us what it is while I look for it?
Yeah, you can follow my X account at NIC Holscher, and you can also follow the McCullough Foundation X account at McCullough Fund, Fund. And also, please go check out our Substack called Focal Points, thefocalpoints.com.
There it is. There it all is right there. Follow him on all of these platforms. And it's been a few days since we've had you on, so it's good to have you back. Thank you as always, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Follow him, folks, right here on his X account. And you can keep up with all these stories when you follow him on X, as well as Dr. McCullough, as well as thefocalpoints.com. Joining me now is Chris Hoare. Chris, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here, Brandon. Good to see you again.
You too, my friend. Hey, I want to talk about power outages because we just had some massive storms come sweeping through the Mid-South and across the country up into Indiana and more. A lot of tornadoes, a lot of flooding here in Tennessee, of course, as well. And of course, if you Google or put into a search engine power outages and then click the filter of news, there is no shortage of news related to power outages. So tell our audience about what we need to do, as it seems though between natural disasters and potential global conflicts, World War III, terrorism, we need to become, more educated on what life would be like without power, and then a solution. Can you talk to me about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. Look, with everything that's been going on the last few years, there have been numerous examples of the power going out. Now, the reasons for this stretch from wildfires and tornadoes and hurricanes all the way through to cyber attacks. But either way, what is very clear if you're in the middle of one of these is that how much we rely on the power for absolutely everything. And it's not just turning on the lights or the AC, Brandon. It's also communications. The power goes out, you've got no television, you've got no internet, and you're also probably going to find you have no cell phone service because cell phone towers, like everything else, run on electricity. So there's a couple of things that everyone should do in order to be prepared for the next time this does happen, and it's just a matter of time. The first thing is getting a satellite phone. A satellite phone works unlike cell phones. Satellite phones don't require cell towers or any kind of ground-based infrastructure to operate. A satellite phone works by connecting directly to a satellite, and so you can make or receive a call to or from a satellite phone, no matter what is going on, right, or no matter where you are. So if the power is out, the cell towers are down, you're going to be able to make or receive calls on your sat phone. And the other thing is wherever you are, because only 10% of the world, not even actually, is covered by any kind of cell phone service. So look, anyone who's got a yacht or has traveled extensively knows that once you get off the beaten road, you're very likely to lose those bars on your cell phone. And so, just going hiking, fishing, hunting, camping, you can run into an emergency and find yourself without a way to call for help. But a satellite phone will get you through any situation like that.
Mm-hmm. And I have one right here, and I travel with it wherever we go. I take it with me when we travel, of course, because you don't know what's going to happen. Last summer, I got into an area for the weekend where I had virtually zero coverage. You could talk for 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds and then nothing. It just was so spotty you couldn't finish a conversation. I had to turn to my satellite phone. What I like about your satellite phones is they are free when you sign up for a very reasonable monthly plan, but you also allow us to take our minutes and then stack them up. So if I don't use some one month, they roll into the next month. So if you go, let's say people in Minnesota go up north to a cabin or the Boundary Waters, canoe area, their minutes are going to store up. They could use it the whole week they were up there because they've got a bunch of minutes banked. So think about that too, right? I mean, this can be for camping and, as you say, hiking. It doesn't have to be emergency. It could also just be you don't want to get outside of an area. I mean, even if you're traveling through, I'm sure, parts of Arizona and other parts of the country, there are long stretches of interstate where there's no cell phone coverage, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, when I lived in San Diego way back when, we'd drive to Vegas every now and then, and that road, you lose cell phone service, multiple times along that freeway. And when you're going through Death Valley, you've got temperatures approaching 150 degrees, and you do not want to be without a phone if you break down in those areas. Look, any one of those great men and women who power the trucking service in this country will tell you that, they might have a citizens band radio or so on, but most of them have a satellite phone because they cannot afford to be out of service in the middle of nowhere. And they know just exactly how many dead spots there are, Brandon.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk then about the solar generators. We get a lot of people asking questions about the solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400. What do you recommend for the average family?
Well, look, I mean, it really depends. But I think it's important to realize that all of these generators none of them require propane or electricity. They can all be recharged from solar panels. So we have smaller units for under $500 that can power a small fridge. They can power your laptop. They can charge up your sat phone, your cell phone, whatever it is. All the way up to the bigger units that literally have the capacity to power your entire house, including your AC, your TV, your lighting, everything. So, it really depends. And I think one thing I want to point out, Brandon, is if you give us a call at 941-841-0844, that's 941-841-0844, our team of sales reps will be happy to talk you through the options for you and your house and your family specifically, as far as, what it is you really need to power up in an emergency and what's best going to fit for you.
But you can also use that 866-738-3224 number on the screen, 1-866-738-3224. Let's talk about the phones real quick. These phones, the phones that you guys offer, they do not store your data. They don't track you and they don't store your data.
Yeah, that's correct. Look, your average cell phone is a personal tracking device, right? It records not only what you've been saying, what you've been texting, it records everyone you've been calling, where you've been, and this data is all archived for whomever to use, probably not in your favor or best interest in the future. That's why we have a secure phone that doesn't actually record anything. This phone does not archive anything at all, right? So even if we were to get a subpoena from law enforcement, there's nothing for us to hand over. We don't believe, Brandon, that we are a law enforcement agency, because we're not. We're a phone service provider. So we provide you with a phone that gives you absolute secrecy and privacy and secrecy, of course, because that information is yours alone. And we don't believe that it should be sold to the highest bidder, as unfortunately it's by most of the big carriers. It's all about data, isn't it? Data collection and then selling your data. Yeah, it's very valuable. Your habits, all of our habits, believe it or not, even those of us who don't do much, are valuable. And that data can be sold and is sold. And it's a huge profit center for the phone companies, for the internet companies that they don't tell you about. And Brandon, they also don't share the profits with you, right? No, they do not. Check out worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com, or 1-866-738-3224. Chris, as always, thank you for reminding us the need to be prepared and understanding these great resources, really. I have the solar generator, the Delta Echo 400. I have my satellite phone. I also have the Bivy, which allows me to sync my cell phone to the Bivy and text through this to a satellite down to a family member that has a Bivy, so you can stay in contact. And that's also a very inexpensive way to make sure you got 24/7 communication. Comment on that in closing? The Bivy's a great alternative. It's smaller than the sat phone, and you can text from it no matter where you are, or you can receive texts no matter where you are without adding anything else to your cell phone plan. So it's a great option. And again, I believe that's free with activation, Brandon. Anywhere else, you're going to pay $200-300 for that unit. Wow. Well, there's always great deals. Tina gives our people great deals and great customer support. worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com, or call to have all your questions answered to make your order as well. 866-738-3224. Chris, thank you as always. Thanks so much, Bram. Appreciate you. Chris checking in, worldviewtalk.com. All right, folks, don't forget, you can get your free business cards, a pack of 20, absolutely free, double-sided. Go to worldviewstore.com, get them, pass them out. We've now shipped out over 12,000 of these, 12,000 of the free business cards. It's a great way for you to put them in your shirt pocket, ladies, your purse, pass them out to people and invite them to watch. Say, hey, look, check out this network. It's free. It's free.
There are Americans and people in some other countries, a few, Canada, but Americans that help to underwrite a network because they want Americans like you to come to know the truth. So go watch it. Watch for 30 days. See if you're not more informed. Pass the cards out. We've now shipped out over 12,000. They're free. You can get your pack and help us promote the network. Worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. You can also find out about our national conference coming up October 3rd and 4th. Register for that if you'd like, including the banquet on Thursday night. We now have those tickets up, worldviewstore.com. Roll the music. Let's call it a night. Another great show. Another great show. Appreciate all of you, each and every one that prays for us, that supports us, and you're promoting us as well. So you're praying for us, you're promoting us, and some of you, a lot of you, are financially supporting us. And never think that $10 a month, $20 a month doesn't matter. It all adds up. So please consider going to worldviewfoundation.com. Help us continue to push out free Christian worldview programming. Till next time at Brennan House, may God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brennan House.